All right, let's get this party started. Woo! Fired up. This is going to be an awesome, awesome training webinar. So I want to thank everybody who's tuned in live for another Equipment Zone training event. Grateful for my friend and my coworker, senior technician, amazing trainer, Roy Huseman will be joining us, and he will be sharing most of the information today. Today's topic is specific for Garment Creator 2 users on the Epson F2270, and we will be taking a little bit of a deeper dive into preparing graphics and the output for DTF transfers. So we've already had 2 sessions prior to this one. One was focused on preparing graphics and output for white garments on the F2270. The last session we did was the same thing, but for dark garments on the F2270. And today we'll be focused on the DTF film, so direct to film transfers. And of course, we're using Garment Creator 2, and we're using the Epson F2270, as I've repeated already 3 or 4 times. And our trainer is the one and only Mr. Roy Huseman. Roy, how are you today?
I'm doing fairly good. How about yourself?
Well, you know, it's another great day in paradise here in Arizona. As we like to say, we are moving into the month of May at this point when we're filming. So warmer weather is just around the corner, my friend.
Definitely agree with that.
Well, speaking of hot weather and keeping it hot, I want to turn it over to you. You're the trainer, you're the master, you're the guy, you're the man, and we're so thrilled that you're here. So why don't you go ahead and take it away? I'll keep my eye on the chat, but until probably at least 30 minutes before I start knocking on your door saying, hey, Roy, let's wrap this up. Otherwise, it's all about you, my friend. It's about you, Garment Creator 2, doing DTF transfers on the F2270. So take it away.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for having us or being here with us, I should say. We'll get into Garment Creator. Just 1 second here. All right. So you can see Garment Creator here. So one thing I do want to mention is there was a update that was released, I think, in the last week or so, and one prior to that, that changed some things around a little bit for the DTF settings. Just FYI on that. So make sure you upgrade to the latest version. Okay, there was some issues with some sizes that you were picking in your layouts and things like that. It wasn't letting you use anything but whole numbers. I'm not sure if the latest fix fixed that, but there was one that was updating yesterday. And because of today, I didn't do that update. So I'm hoping that, you know, all the bugs are worked out. I just didn't want to create new bugs for myself. But anyway, starting out with the DTF settings. So you got your film button up here at the top. It's going to change the background color, so you know you're in the DTF setting. It also mirrors the image automatically, which is a change from the older version of Garment Creator. With the DTF setup, you do have 3 options that are included. You got your standard film, your film white, and your film used garment black. So the used garment black will remove any solid blacks. If it's a non-solid black or a grayscale or, you know, a dark gray of sorts, it will not remove that color, just FYI. It only will remove solid black. The film for white is going to be for doing just type or what have you, where you're just putting white ink down. You can use that option, whatever one you want to use. I typically don't use it. I just use one of the standard options myself because it's only going to print the white anyway. Okay. So it really depends on your workflow or what you're doing or how easy it is for you to navigate. But based on these settings, they have modified some things based on the original Garment Creator F2100, is they separated your top white from your base white. Okay, top white is going to be any type, things of that nature that are going to print. And if I leave it at 0 on a lot of the films that are out there right now, which is your standard settings. So if I just click on my standard, whether it be the film uh, standard or use garment black feature, there's zeros in here for color density, white, and what have you. Okay, so in order to have a thinner layer of white, which is also going to give you a softer feel on the actual DTF when you actually do the transfer. That's something to consider as well. Now, when you're doing just white ink, uh, don't cut the white back too much, because if the white is too thin, although you're printing white alone by itself, it's going to crack and prematurely degrade after a period of washes. So you want to make sure if you're just doing white by itself, that you probably stay with your standard 0 settings or something close to that. If you want to thin it out a little bit, depending on the film that you're using, obviously, we're hoping you're using our film, but some of the films aren't going to hold as much ink as others. So keep that in mind. So with that in mind, you might end up cutting it back too much and having too thin of a layer, which is going to cause some issues. So my typical settings to start out is going to be reducing my top white, my base white, and then also increasing my color density. Okay, because with the additional white ink and being that there's no fabric involved, it's going to wash out some of the colors. Now, Epson has done a fantastic job of the automatic color settings within Garment Creator for the DTF to give you something that's going to match the DTG right out of the gate pretty close. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple of the settings that I have changed. Okay, so I have a total of 3 settings that I did. Okay, so I have my standard DTF. I have also a standard DTF for the UGB, which is the same setting, just removing the black ink. And then I have a standard DTF plus density. And then I have a standard DTF plus density and contrast that I created as well. So you can create as many as you'd like. If there's certain files that you're trying to achieve, then basically that's going to be something you want to focus on. So anyway, we'll start out with the first one and see what the changes were. Okay, so we stayed with the quality of level 3, which is your top quality for DTF. I changed my print direction because I like to allow the ink to dry as it's laying down. And if I do a unidirectional, it's going to do that. Plus, with the film being thinner, I want to make sure that I stay with a sharp image on there as well, which the unidirectional will also help with that. My profile just left on auto, no drying time involved. The unidirectional helps with that. So what I'm doing first off, and this is something I mentioned before, we're just displacing water. So my film is somewhat of a sponge that's going to suck the water out of the ink, allowing the ink to set up. So the first thing I want to do, since my film is going to pull the water out of the ink, I want to make sure that I have room for that. So I want to warm my film up. Okay, when you're ready for the big time and move to a DTF printer like we have, our film is heated prior to printing, heated after printing, and then heated just before the powder is applied to make sure there's no powder adhering to anywhere on the film it doesn't belong. Okay, if there's any moisture, the powder will adhere. So just want to make sure. So basically I'm mimicking that by closing my heat press and throwing the film up on the rubber mat while my job is going over, and just for a few seconds to pull some excess moisture out, and then I throw it on my platen. If for whatever reason it got a little too hot and started to not lay flat, I'll flip it upside down for a moment to stabilize it and then put it up onto the printer. Worst case, I might have to tape it down. So try to avoid that by not letting it sit too long. Once I print, I'm going to repeat that process. Close the heat press, and allow for the rubber mat to warm up and throw the film up there face up and allow it to start the drying process of the ink. Okay, ultimately I want my ink to have a matte or satin look, which means the powder is not going to penetrate into the ink layer, which can cause issues. And it's going to put a thinner layer of powder, which is going to give me a softer feel on my fabric. Okay, so definitely something to consider when you're doing that. And then I'll apply my powder and go through the process of curing, whether or not you're using a heat press to do that, or if you're using a one of our dryers, which tends to work real well to cure it much faster and much more uniform across the surface as well. So something definitely to purchase if you're doing a lot of DTFs. It makes life a lot easier. So getting back to the settings, as we get down into the ink density, I've increased the ink density on the color by 15% to give me a little bit more. I've decreased my white top by 30%, okay, which originally I think they toned down the settings a little bit on the white in the DTF modes in general because originally, if you didn't change these from 0, you were flooding the film so much it was just dripping off. So there has been a significant change in the later settings on Garment Creator 2. So I'm still going back. Now you can go as low as -80 on the white. Just be careful, as I mentioned, if the white's too thin, it will not adhere properly to the shirt and you're going to have issues with washability. So I'll stay with the 50 there, and the reduced white area, since we're so tight and we don't have fabric involved, I'm increasing my reduced white up to 3 to get a better trap on the white versus the color. Okay. And then last of all, I increase my brightness by 10 and or decrease my brightness by 10 and increase my contrast by 10. Just to give me a little bit more vibrant color. And I'll show you an example of what that is in a moment. And then the next setting that I did is to add a little bit of density. Okay, so basically what I've done there is instead of doing the 15 on the density up on top, I changed it to 30. I've changed my white to a -20 and my base to a -30 instead of the full 50. Okay. And then the color settings at the bottom I've left alone at the -10 and +10. And then the last thing is to add a little bit more contrast. Went ahead and took those same settings and increased my contrast by 20%, which gives me a little bit more vibrancy, and you'll see the difference in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up this PDF right here. So here on the left is DTG printed on a black t-shirt. Okay, you can see the color difference between the two. And the first one is just using right out of the gate the settings within the Garment Creator 2, just your standard film setting. Okay. Now in or I should say, if you're looking at these shirts side by side, the one on the right, that's the film setting, is slightly a little off. It's not as close as it looks here in the picture. For whatever reason, I couldn't distinguish it in the picture as well. But you'll see some vibrancy changes on the, and I can actually hold them up to the camera as well in a moment so you can kind of see the differences on them too. Okay. So then the next one is going to be the DTG next to the DTF standard. Okay. So again, this one you could see is a little bit lighter on there. But again, what we're trying to also achieve is a softer feel. No one wants a vinyl thick image on their shirt. So another thing that we use to soften that up is on our second press, we use a product called Pellin. It's something we get from a fabric store. It's called Buckram 375. and we'll put that on the DTF after it's been peeled away on the film transfer, and do the second press. And what that does is puts a slight texture into the DTF to make it look like it's part of the shirt, like a silk screen or a DTG, and it also takes some of the shine away. So it gives it a softer look as well as a softer feel. Okay. Then the next one is my DTG side by side with the DTF with the extra density, which you can see here, has a much more vibrant look to it. Okay, on the DTF on the right. Okay, and basically those went through the settings there. So I'm going to go ahead and is there any questions that anybody has that we can go through on the chat there that you've looked at?
Yeah, there were a couple, Roy, if you don't mind. One of them was, I think Terry answered it, but if you want to go ahead, when you were describing, how long to preheat the film, is that a process where you clamp down your heat press and warm up that rubber base? Is that what you were talking about? And then for how long would you do that?
Yeah. Basically, I'll just close the platen just to have it come in contact. It only takes a few seconds to warm up that rubber mat. So literally a couple seconds, and then I'll put the film down. And it just needs to be warm to cause the additional moisture in the film to start evaporating. And then I don't want to distort the film, obviously. The thinner the film, the more apt it's going to be to distortion. So just keep that in mind.
Great. Sounds good.
Okay, so you might want a little bit more time when you're going to put it down to start drying the ink before you apply the powder. Okay. But you want to keep it to where it's not this big cumbersome process. Make it consistent, quick, easy. The thing is, if you have a lot of moisture in the air, say it's raining outside, humidity is at 85, it's cool, you could opt to, set the film over by a warmer area in your shop. I've had customers take a whole pack of film home and put them in the oven overnight on a low temperature, like, you warm up the oven and just turn it off, let them sit overnight, and then put some silica packs in there. So if you have any silica packs you can throw in there, that would be something that would be very helpful as well. Okay, so
Last question, Roy. Some people call the fabric for the second press. Can I ask a question about that? Is it standard operating procedure that we would recommend a second press for what, 5 to 7 seconds anyways, right? That would be standard operating procedure. And
yeah,
then,
basically on the second press, time wise, that's going to vary. Okay. You want to make sure that you have plenty of time. So don't undercut the time. I know everybody's talking about speed, especially when it comes to a sales aspect. Oh, we want to be as fast as possible. But when it comes to the actual garment you're putting it on, I mean, if I'm putting it on an umbrella or something, 15 seconds, I mean, my umbrella could be melted. The temperature I'm using could also melt the umbrella. So our DTF films are pretty flexible. We run about 265 to 330 degrees. The times are going to fluctuate anywhere between 5 seconds and 15 seconds. Whatever your first press is, I like to go with my second press being the same thing.
okay,
As far as
interesting.
curing goes. If you undercure it, you may have an issue with washability at the end or premature cracking of my images. So we
So
do a lot of, go
better to
ahead.
be safe, better to be safe, better to take that extra 10 seconds or 5 or 15, whatever it is, depending on the substrate. What you're saying is it's better to be safe. It's better to take that curing to a little bit higher level. And the reason I'm emphasizing this, Roy, is there are other national brands that are using this, like you said, as a sales tool to say that second press isn't even necessary.
Well, I would say that's inaccurate because you're going to pull on the image at when you're pulling the film off. And everyone can attest to times when they go to pull the film, some of areas of the image start to want to peel up, and then you might pull from another angle. Well, I'm not going to want to let that shirt go out the door. I want to press it again and get a nice firm contact. The second press, I think, is more critical than the first because you're getting that bond with the adhesive in the fabric. And again, with time wise, keeping in mind that the fabric's got to warm up to accept that uh, adhesive.
Right,
So
right.
if I got a sweatshirt and I'm giving it a 5 second press or a 7 second press, I'm not even letting that sweatshirt material warm up enough to maybe bond well with that adhesive. So,
Gotcha.
I always like to add more time to a sweatshirt or something thicker and kind of play with it. Come up with times and temperatures that are going to work for your products, what you're working with. And be creative. I mean, we've tried all kinds of different things: wood, cardboard, leather, you name it. We're trying to put DTFs on it,
Great.
and times and temperatures are going to change based on what you're putting it on.
Oh, perfect ending. I was just going to say that, but you beat me to it. That's because Jerry in the chat was saying, so the initial press might be 338 for 15 seconds, but the reality is it depends. It's critical and it depends on the substrate. Every substrate's going to be different. Every product you use is going to have a different setting of time, temperature, and pressure. So you have to test it out. There is no one size fits all there. And then the other thing people are asking about is it, and I think it's called both things. So there isn't a right or wrong here, but there's Pellon material that old screen printers we used to call a Pellon material, or you call it a buckram. You gave a specific
Mhm.
fabric number for the buckram. Is that something you got at Michael's or Cloth Store or on Amazon? Where did we end up with that
I got it from Joann's.
Gotcha,
Joann's
Joanne's.
Fabric.
Okay.
A yard is somewhere between $4 and $7, depending on if it's on sale. And 1 yard will give you two pieces if you cut it in half to cover a full size 16 by 20 heat press.
And you want to make sure to get the kind that
So I
has
can show you
zero
what it,
zero adhesive on it. There's no, it's just fabric,
that's
right?
correct. You
Okay.
want the 375 is a sew on product. And when you throw the word Pellon around, some people don't realize there's about 60 or 70 different kinds of Pellon.
Right.
We've tried a lot of different ones, the felt kind, uh, and we ended up finding this specific product is very versatile, does a great job, and it will last a long time. So 1 yard cutting two pieces is going to last you for a while,
Yeah, perfect.
unless you have a lot of extra adhesive being pressed out onto it. That could cause an issue, but obviously that would resort back to you're not doing a good job doing your curing on
Yeah, and I think
the
too, good
DTF.
point, Roy. I think I want to make this, different people are going to have different opinions on that, different feel, different taking off the gloss, taking the matte finish to a softer feel, softer level. So you do need to experiment with that. For those of you that are here live, John, thank you for dropping the link into the chat so you guys can see that. And then again, to reiterate, the second press after the film has been removed, that time and temperature is going to depend, but our standard answer is what, Roy?
Well, the standard answer is whatever my. It's up to you to wash test the shirts.
Okay, so
Make shirts
it's
for yourself and your family. Take them
gotcha,
home, wash them, see how they're performing.
gotcha.
That's
So
what we do.
yep, it is what we do. And I found somewhere between
Yep.
10 to 15 seconds, depending on what I'm doing, depending on what I'm actually pressing, depending on the substrate. Because if I have a sensitive poly material, I may have to time that down a little bit. But I have exactly what you described. I have done it more than people want to know, where
Mhm.
I have gone to lift off the film and one of the letters is starting to lift off. Then it releases from the carrier sheet. And so then I know it's okay, but it's critical that I get that second press on. So
Mhm.
I'm just emphasizing that a little bit. All right, Roy, I'm turning it back over to you, my friend. You had some more to show, or what's
Well,
next?
basically, kind of gone through the whole thing as far as settings and all that. If anybody want some basic times and temperatures, they could always reach out and shoot an email, and I will email them back the information. So be roy.h@equipmentzone.com. And we also have what we call a quick start guide that goes through the basics on heating the film and things of that nature, as well as if you're using a heat press, what you need to keep in mind. If I'm using, say, a geonite that has a hover, like we have here in our building, it's going to hover fairly close, but it hovers closer on the back end than it does the front. It's kind of at an angle. Now, if I'm using a Stahl's Fusion, which is a very popular heat press, your platen is way too far from the actual uh, the pad when you put the film down. So what I'd suggest to customers is go out and buy two 20-inch pieces of 1/4 inch by whatever 1 inch, 3/4 inch molding that you can find at Home Depot. You can cut it by the inch, and then they'll charge you going out the door. And just put your film down and lay one piece on each side of the film, and just let the platen rest on the wood. And that'll get you a much faster curing time and much more even curing time, because it's going to lay perfectly flat parallel to the film.
Roy, so this session is being recorded, and of course we'll have added to our Equipment Zone YouTube channel. So a little plug for the channel. All of our training videos are there, including the last two. But is there anything specific that you could talk about as it relates to our, I mean, we kind of joke about calling it the easy bake oven, but our curing oven, is there anything there that you could expand on or share or highlight?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we've got a great curing oven. It is very flexible if you like to run a hotter temperature and shorter times, depending on how thick your film is. The thinner the films are out there, they tend to buckle under high temperatures. So you do have the flexibility to lower the temperature, increase the time, and get that dialed in to get a perfect orange peel type effect, making sure all the adhesive powder has actually solidified and melted into the ink. So definitely you can run through some testing there. I kind of middle of the road run, a mid-range temperature with a little bit longer time versus going for the full on, trying to get it at a 60-second cure, which you can, no problem. But for the amount of time it takes to actually print a DTF, you're going to cure it in plenty of time. So it's not like it's going to be a bottleneck to go a little bit more time on the unit. Again, it's a great selling feature, but being realistic, there's a lot of different films out there, depending if you're using hot peel, cold peel. Now, our hot peel, because we originally had some issues with it wanting to, bend up and get close to the bulbs and cause some issues with the stability of the film, we actually went to what we call a dual matte surface to make it more stable so it doesn't do that. So you can use a hotter temperature in the curing process.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So obviously, folks, if you tuned in and you're watching our session, we are going to recommend our own films. We have the Easy DTF film. It's a pro film series. It's on our Shopify store. You can see it on our website. So we'd love to, obviously we're not here to sell you that film, but people are asking in the chat. So I wanted to let you know that you could check out. We have different sheet sizes. For the F2270, the most popular sheet size is still the 16x20, but we do have smaller sheet sizes, and it's available at equipmentzone.com. So check that out. Roy, there was one more question that I was trying to remember. Somebody triggered it for me in the chat, and it had to do with.
Well, the other thing someone is asking again on the second press. Second press should be what you used for the first one. So whatever that ended up at, that's what used for the second press.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Typically on most things, it's 15 seconds, somewhere close to that, 15.
Gotcha.
Which isn't all that long. If you're standing in front of the heat press
And
at the end of
we
the day.
can't emphasize enough the
Um,
importance of testing, right? I
So
mean, that's going to be key. Test,
exactly,
right? How
it's
often
up
do
to
you
you
see?
to do that. So again, the thinner fabrics, poly products, that fabric's going to heat up much faster as well. So it's more prone to scarring because of that. You know, if you have too much pressure and you're using too hot of a temperature. But, you know, there are some good products out there that we've ran and done a lot of testing on, as well as samples, which the Sanmar dry fit type shirts, they're 100% poly products. I can run at 330 degrees, no problem, going back and forth between cotton without any scarring or discoloration or anything of that nature. Obviously, there's, you know, dye migration on some of the poly products if it's using a heat activated dye. So you might have to lower your temperature because of that. So it is, you know, as DTG is, you got to kind of test whatever products you want to sell and make sure that you have settings that are going to work for those products.
Well said. Right.
And pressure, light pressure, which would run 20 pounds typically, especially if you have a heat air assist machine, they typically won't even function if you go below 20 pounds.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for that question, John, and thank you for the answer. Roy, I wanted to make sure people are aware that if they have technical support issues, if you own the Epson F2100 or the Epson F2270 or any Epson DTG printer, quite honestly, and you're stuck, you're not sure what to do, you're welcome to call us. You can call us, submit a what we call a tech support ticket, go to our website. If you want to, that would be probably our first preference would be visit our website, start a tech ticket. And we'll try to give you the guidance and point you in the right direction. We may not be able to immediately fix your printer, but just to have an experienced sounding board. Our technicians are fabulous, whether they're in New Jersey or whether they're in Arizona. We're grateful for all of them. So this is a place where you could go to fill out a tech support ticket and see if there's something that we could do. If there's a setting that you're trying or a message on your screen, you're not sure about the error code, things like that. So if we can help you, we will. If we're not sure, or if we know that you're going to need Epson's help, we'll point you in that direction as well. So and then finally, last thing, if you do have sales questions, of course, Terry and Amy are eager to speak to you. You can see Terry's email and Amy's email on the screen right there for more information about products and supplies. Please visit our website. For questions about printers, please check in with Terry and Amy. Roy, was there anything else you want to wrap up on? We're past our time. We're about 30.
Yeah. Well, one last thing.
Yeah.
Thanks again for attending, the ones that listen live and asked questions. That was great. As far as the tech support, just getting back to that real quick. If you would like a one-on-one specialized training on any DTG, DTF issues, we do offer that. It is chargeable, so keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, great.
The tech support is free. So based on Jay mentioning, you don't have to buy from us, but to keep us on the other end of the phone, we do ask that you do buy stuff from us if you want to use our tech support. So
100%.
Anyway, it would be very helpful.
100%. Well said.
Thanks again.
We're just keeping it real here. No, thanks, Roy. I appreciate your time. That was a great session for everybody who tuned in. I know they're excited for seeing the master, as I say. But if you're looking for more training videos, as I said, please visit our Equipment Zone YouTube channel. You can subscribe there. You can binge there, if you will. Lots of great content coming up in the future too. So thanks everybody for tuning in. And until our next training webinar, be kind and we'll talk to you later. See ya.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.